The Philippine political landscape was shaken to its core in November 2024. Vice President Sara Duterte Carpio issued a chilling threat against President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. She threatened to have him assassinated if anything were to happen to her. Duterte Carpio didn't stop there. She also named First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos and House Speaker Martin Romualdez as targets. The audacity of the threat was amplified by Duterte Carpio's claim to have already hired an assassin. Her words, far from being empty threats, were a calculated display of power. They sent shockwaves through the nation and beyond. President Marcos, though visibly shaken, responded with a call for calm and a return to the rule of law. Security around the president and other named targets was immediately heightened. The Presidential Security Command went on high alert. The incident exposed the deep cracks in Philippine politics. It was a stark reminder of the volatile mix of power, personality, and politics that has long characterized the nation. This was not just a political spat. It was a deeply personal and public feud. The incident laid bare the fragility of alliances in Philippine politics. It also hinted at the simmering tensions beneath the surface of the Duterte-Marcos alliance. The relationship between the Duterte and Marcos families, once a formidable political force, had been deteriorating for months. What was initially perceived as a strategic alliance had devolved into a bitter rivalry. Public feuds and name-calling became commonplace. The veneer of unity had shattered, revealing the deep-seated animosity. Duterte Carpio herself acknowledged the toxicity of the relationship. She admitted to fantasizing about Marcos's beheading. She felt used, a pawn in a political game orchestrated by the Marcoses. The alliance, forged in the crucible of the 2022 elections, had run its course. The reasons for the rift were complex and multifaceted. Differing views on foreign policy, particularly relations with China and the United States, played a significant role. Economic policies and the allocation of government resources also fueled the tension. At the heart of the conflict lay a power struggle. Both families are political behemoths, with deep roots and even deeper ambitions. The alliance, once mutually beneficial, had become untenable. The gloves were off and the fight for political dominance was on. In the wake of the assassination threat, calls for Duterte Carpio's resignation reached fever pitch. She stepped down from her position as Education Secretary in June 2024. However, she remained steadfast in her role as Vice President. Her resignation did little to quell the storm of controversy. Lawmakers, sensing blood in the water, initiated impeachment proceedings against Duterte Carpio. Allegations of corruption, including the misappropriation of funds from the Office of the Vice President and the Department of Education, surfaced. Her chief of staff was even detained for failing to cooperate with investigations. Duterte Carpio vehemently denied all allegations. She accused her opponents of political maneuvering. She framed the impeachment calls as a witch hunt orchestrated by the Marcoses to consolidate their power. The budget for her office remained frozen, with lawmakers demanding greater transparency and accountability. The situation presented a significant challenge for President Marcos. He found himself caught between a rock and a hard place. On the one hand, he needed to distance himself from the scandal-plagued Duterte Carpio to salvage his own reputation. On the other hand, he couldn't afford to completely alienate the Duterte camp, which still commanded considerable support. The dramatic events unfolded against the backdrop of the upcoming 2025 midterm elections. The polls were seen as a referendum on the Marcos presidency. They were also an opportunity for the Dutertes to reassert their political dominance. The stage was set for a political showdown of epic proportions. Adding another layer of intrigue to the mix was the political comeback of Rodrigo Duterte. At 79, the former firebrand president set his sights on reclaiming his old seat as mayor of Davao City. His return to the political fray was seen by many as an attempt to shore up his family's political fortunes. The 2025 midterm elections were more than just a routine political exercise. They were a battle for the soul of the Philippines. The outcome would determine the balance of power for years to come. It would also shape the political landscape ahead of the 2028 presidential elections. The Philippines stood at a crossroads. Would it succumb to the politics of personality and patronage, or would it embrace a more democratic and accountable future? The answer, as always, lay in the hands of the Filipino people.